Alrighty guys, it's time for another lesson. Our next topic is on relations. So let's go ahead and start out with some vocabulary at the top. So the first one says blank is a set of ordered pairs, and our first word that we're going to fill in right there is relations. So a relation is a set of ordered pairs. The next one is going to be the domain. So the domain is the set of x values or the inputs in a relation. And then the third word that we're going to fill in is the range. The range is the set of y values or the outputs in a relation. So let's go ahead and keep on moving. Let's look at example 1. Example 1 says, express each relation as a table and a graph, and then state the domain and range. So first, let's go ahead and list all of our x values and our y values. So if we look at our ordered pairs, the first one, our x value is going to be 3. All right. If we look at the ordered pair -2, 4, our x value is -2. In the ordered pair 4, -4, 4 is our x value. In 4, 0, 4 is our x value again. And then lastly, -1, -3, our x value is -1. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. In the ordered pair 3, 2, our y value is 2. All right, and -2, 4, 4 is our y value. 4, -4, -4 is the y value. The next one, 0 is our y value. And lastly, -3 is our y value. Okay, so let's take a second and go ahead and graph these ordered pairs. Okay, so the first one we want to graph 3, 2. So we're going to go over to 3 on our x-axis and up 2. And our point is going to be right about there. All right, next we have -2, 4. So go to the left 2 and up 4. Our point is going to be right about here. Okay, 4, -4. I'm going to go over to the right 4 and down -4. Okay, so it's going to be here. 4, 0 is going to be to the right 4 and staying on the x-axis right there. And last but not least, -1, -3. We're going to go to the left -1 and down 3. All right, but let's not forget about the last part of the question. It says, then state the domain and the range. So the domain said it's the set of x values or the input in a relation. So whenever we write the domain, our domain is always going to be our x values. So whenever we're listing our x values, you have to write it in set notation. Okay, sorry for that brief interruption. So like I was saying, the domain is always going to be your x values. So we're going to look at our list and just copy down our x values. However, whenever you're writing the domain, you have to make sure that you're writing it in numerical order. So my first number is going to be -2. Then I'm going to put -1, 3, and then I'm going to put 4. If you notice, we have 4 listed twice in our x values. So when you're listing the domain and the range, you don't have to put the numbers twice. You just have to list it once, and that will be enough. So if we look at the range, which we have to list as well. All right, I'm just going to write R for range and write a set notation. We just have to write down all of our y values, once again, writing it in numerical order. So if we look at our y values, my first one is going to be -4, then -3, 0, 2, and 4. All right, so I listed my domain, and I've also listed my range. Let's keep going. Let's look at number 2. All right, example 2 is the same thing. So for my x values, I'm going to go ahead and list them. My first one is going to be -1, I'm sorry. 2, 3, 5, and -4. Then my y values from my ordered pairs are going to be -5, -3, negative 2, 1, and 2. So once again, let's go ahead and graph those. So negative 1, negative 5, it's going to be down here. All right. 2, negative 3, I'm going to go over 2 and down 3. It's going to be right about there. 3, negative 2, I'm going to go over to 3, down to negative 2, which is down here. All right, let's go ahead and plot 5, 1. So I'm going to go over to 5 and up 1. It's right there. And last but not least again, negative 4, 2. I'm going to go over to negative 4 to the left and up 2. And that point falls right there. So once again, I got to list my domain and my range. We said that my domain is all of my x values. So I'm just going to write D for domain. All right, and I have to list them in numerical order. So the first one I'm going to write is negative 4. Then I'm going to write negative 1. Then I have 2, 3, and 5. Pretty simple. Then for my range, let me write that. Let me erase that really quick. All right, I'm going to write my bracket. And then for my y values, I'm going to list them in order. I have negative 5, negative 3, negative 2, 1, and 2. All right, pretty simple stuff. And let's skip down to number 3, our last example. So I have 5 ordered pairs, and I need to go ahead and write my x and my y values. So let's go ahead and write down my x values. I have 0. And instead of fractions, I'm going to go ahead and write them as decimal. So I have 1.5, negative 3.5, negative 4, and negative 2. Okay, and then my y values are going to be 3, negative 2, 2.5, negative 3, and 0. And let's go ahead and plot those points. So 0, 3, I'm going to go to 0 and then up 3. That point's going to be there. I'm going to go 1.5, so I'm going to go over 1.5 space, then down 2. That point's going to be kind of on that line in the middle. Okay, so negative 3.5, I'm going to go to the left 3.5 spaces and up 2.5. So that point's going to be right there in the middle of that circle. That square, excuse me. The next point that I need to plot is negative 4 and negative 3. So I'm going to go to the left 4 and down 3. And it's right there on this line. And last but not least, I'm going to go over to negative 2, 0, and that point's going to fall right there. So once again, the last thing that I need to do is go ahead and plot my domain and my range. So my domain is going to be from least to greatest. I'm going to have negative 4, negative 3.5, negative 2, 0, and 1.5. Once again, my range is all my y values. So I'm going to plot negative 3, negative 2, 0, 2.5, and 3. So we finished that. It looks pretty good. Hopefully you guys understand that. Make sure that you keep your notes. And once again, we'll have our warm-up ready to go on this stuff reviewing tomorrow morning.